Welcome to our monthly Lunch and Learn. We have some very distinguished guests with us today, and I'm so happy to invite all of them and thank all of you for coming to our monthly series. So we have Bishop John Taylor from the Episcopal Diocese here, who's going to offer a welcome and a blessing.
So this is how we smoke out the liturgically minded followers of Jesus. The Lord be with you. Gracious and Holy One, there's a big argument in civic circles when people ask themselves in a civil setting, pledge to the recognition of all faiths or no faith. They ask themselves, how much religion should we let into government? And then over there in the church, people say to themselves, and they're trying to honor your son, but people say, how much politics should we involve in the pulpit? So these two arguments rage, and yet your people have their needs. We welcome Councilmember Hernandez, who is pledged to justice for all your people. And if we're people of faith, we believe in the divine law of love, which is for all your people. So what the public square and what the pulpit and the mosque and the temple have in common is a devotion to what's best for all your people. There is so much here, gracious God, notwithstanding our different preoccupations, so much more that unites us and divides us. We give you thanks for the presence of the council member and all here to learn what she has to say and to support her in her good work, to care for all of our neighbors. We pray this in your mighty name. Amen.
So I just want to thank Bishop Taylor and Canon Bob Williams, who are with us today in terms of opening their doors to the Immaculate Heart community 3 years ago in January. And we were welcomed into the family here with open arms, and we've been so blessed to be here. We're among an interfaith community that's exploring sacred space here, so we regularly meet with Nefesh, which is the Jewish community that has a presence here, and other faith-based groups that circulate through here. And it's an important, I think it's important to acknowledge this space as that sacred space that's emerging here for a number of different faith-based traditions. So again, I want to really thank Bishop Taylor and Canon Bob Williams for making that possible for us. Let's give them a hand. And with that, we want to bring Councilwoman Eunisses Hernandez up forward. I want to just introduce you a little bit, and I know you have a hard stop at 1 o'clock, so we want to get this on the road. So you can get on the road to hand out more chickens. I heard they handed out, what did you say, 2,000 chickens this morning in Chinatown? Whoa, that's great. Okay, so Councilwoman Hernandez was elected to office in December 2022 in District 1. Her background is as a community organizer, a daughter of Mexican immigrants, a lifelong District 1 resident. She was born and raised and currently lives in Highland Park. She's led campaigns, coalitions, and commissions that transformed local and statewide policy before election to City Council. Since that time, she's prioritized a care-first agenda that focuses on investing in community care, workforce development, social services, harm reduction programs that help make our neighborhoods safe and healthier places for all Angelenos. She's led a number of initiatives in terms of tenant protections, She's done groundbreaking work for unarmed crisis response pilot program. She's secured over $25 million in public and private funding to improve safety, cleanliness, and access to services in MacArthur Park. She co-authored the Sanctuary Cities Ordinance. And so those of you who, and so we welcome her today, and those of you who have attended our lunch and learns in the past, you know that we ask you to do three things when you come to these. We seek to educate ourselves about whatever issues our heroes and sheroes bring to us during this series. So, and we focus on various justice and social justice issues. So Councilwoman Hernandez will be speaking to us today about some of those things in our community. The second thing we do is ask you to pray in your own faith tradition. So you're praying for the issues that you're going to be hearing about. And then finally, we ask you to find a way to act, put your faith into action based on what we're going to be hearing today. So please consider all of that, and please join me in welcoming Councilwoman Hernandez to our November Lunch and Learn.
Hello, everybody. How you doing today? Thank you so much for letting me join y'all and share space with y'all, and thank you for the prayer. In these times, it's the faith that holds me down and keeps me moving, because things are scary, things are tough, but you know, we love our people, and God is good, and He is with us. So I appreciate you all. Good afternoon. My name is Eunisses Hernandez. I'm the councilwoman representing the 1st District. And I have my team, my colleague here, Michelle, with me here today. Thank you to the Immaculate Heart community for inviting me and for the work that you continue to do in advancing justice, dignity, and spiritual solidarity for all Los Angeles. A huge shout out to people who organize these series: Pam Hope, we have Dean Camacho, Elizabeth Lomelli, Gabby Mayorga, and Sheila Arasawa. Thank you so much for getting together and putting this together. And Bishop John Taylor and St. Paul's Canon Bob Williams, also again for coming together. And teamwork makes the dream work, and that's why we're all here today. Los Angeles is at a crossroads. Our communities are being priced out by corporations, harassed by landlords, starved by the federal government, and terrorized by ICE all at once. And we have a responsibility to step up and fight however we can. And so let's talk about what it means to hold the line. Just last week, we fought hard for and won a 4% cap on rent increases for rent-stabilized units. So these are not market rate, these are not luxury, these are our seniors, these are our most vulnerable communities who are on fixed incomes. That's who lives in RSO units, and their checks on SSI don't go up 4% every year. It doesn't work that way, and so for these folks to experience higher than 4%, sometimes 10% or more increases, is not sustainable. And so we were able to pass that. That hasn't happened in 40 years in the city of Los Angeles. We also eliminated the utility pass-through that allowed landlords to nickel and dime tenants for gas and electricity. Why? Because we know there's a direct line from a rent hike to an eviction notice, and from an eviction notice to a tent on the sidewalk. We have a serious eviction to homelessness pipeline. And you know, we housed 20,000 people in 1 year, and in the same year, 25,000 people fall into homelessness, primarily due to unaffordable rent and the eviction to homelessness pipeline. But capping the rent isn't enough. When wages are stagnant, so we got to work on both. And that is why we're expanding emergency rental assistance right here in CD1 for people that their wages can't go up, like our seniors. We are putting cash directly into the hands of families in Westlake, MacArthur Park, and all throughout the district. We've invested $500,000 in rental assistance to help keep families in their housing. We've allocated $200,000 from my council office discretionary funds to the city's Community Investment for Families Department to expand food distributions at our Family Source Center at CCMP, which is Central City Neighborhood Partners, one of the city's most trusted community-based partners serving low-income and migrant families. And that was last week. But this week, we invested another $250,000 into food access because people are going hungry. not just our immigrant communities, but everybody is having a tough time accessing poultry, chickens, turkey for Thanksgiving, because the cost of everything continues to go up. So we did have 200,000, but that has gone up to over 450,000. And for far too long, we've asked police to be social workers, mental health clinicians, and marriage counselors. It doesn't work. We're fighting to expand unarmed crisis response. What does that mean? That means that, let's say you have someone who's having a mental health crisis, or like your loved one, and they have housing, or someone has suicidal ideations, or someone's walking naked in the street. Usually, when someone calls 911, it only goes to two places: our fire department and our police department. Unarmed crisis response teams are clinicians, doctors, nurses, peers that make up teams that all they do is get trained to de-escalate situations, intervene in mental health crisis situations, and support people so that they don't end up dead or in jail. These unarmed crisis response teams, there's a pilot in the city of LA that started last year that I've been spearheading with my colleague, Councilmember Blumenfield. Over 16,000 calls, and less than 5% have these teams needed LAPD backup, which means that they're working, they're keeping people alive, and they're also saving us money. When they respond to a call, it's $35. When LAPD responds to the same call, it's $85. And LAPD isn't trained they're trained in a lot of things, but de-escalating and assisting people with mental health needs in crisis is not what they're meant to do. So these teams are keeping people alive as well. They're resolving crisis without violence and without arrest, and the data shows that it works. Now we need the budget to make it citywide. I don't know if y'all saw on the news, but in May, when we were going through the city budget process, we were in $1 billion deficit. $1 billion. And I was one of the folks on the Budget and Finance Committee team to help close that gap so we didn't have to fire anybody. And also I was able to find $4.4 million new dollars to expand our unarmed crisis response pilot to 3 additional police divisions, which is gonna means that more teams can go out there. The ultimate goal and my ultimate dream is that we have an emergency bureau of communications that essentially is the 911 dispatching system that you call and you get the right team to respond in an appropriate amount of time. Right now, we don't have enough of these teams, so that is the end goal, that we're at citywide capacity for response by the Olympics, if not before. I've also partnered with, thank you. I've also partnered with an organization called Mi Gente. Mi Gente is one of my political homes. They are all over the country. They organize, they bring people together, and we're working with them to deploy a community defense organizer to do work in our council district. What does that mean? What do? What they do is that they are building up our emergency response for the immigration and federal immigration raids that are happening. So they're out there training people on community defense, how to document federal immigration raids. Whenever there's a raid, we have block captains that go out and respond to the area, connect with the families there, check out what's happening, what's the situation, bring that information back so that we can appropriately respond, provide resources. This person also has helped us bring in people from Argentina and Chile so that we can learn, what did these countries do? How did these communities survive when they faced authoritarianism? Because when the first 3 weeks of the federal immigration raids here in LA, our government, we were like chickens without heads, running around because there was no playbook. What do you do when your own government comes after your people in such an explicit way? We didn't have a plan. And so learning from other countries and how they survive is something we wanted to bring forward. And so that's also been happening. And a lot of it is mutual aid. A lot of it is building block by block captain programs so that you know everybody on your block so you can keep them protected. We know we lost a lot of people in the fires in Palisades and Eaton. People got left behind. And part of that was a lack of community connection. And so we're building block by block captain programs and teams to help respond also to these raids. And so I did co-author the Sanctuary City Ordinance for the city of LA. That doesn't create a wall to stop the federal government from coming in. But what it says is we're not using our facilities, we're not using our staff, we're not using our money to enforce any federal immigration law. And that has helped us kick them off of our property when they've tried to take ownership of our parking lots. And I've also put in some motions around LAPD accountability, because we have people out there protesting, using their First Amendment rights, who are getting beaten with batons by police on horses, tear gassed, shot with rubber bullets. And there has to be accountability there, because one of the reasons why we're in a $1 billion deficit is because of the number of liabilities that come in from police overuse of force. And we can't be authoritarianism in our response when we're trying to fight authoritarianism. So I put in motions around that, around stopping them from enabling unconstitutional action. So I don't know if you saw videos of literally women getting picked up in downtown LA by the feds, and LAPD is facing over here, and they're throwing the women in the car. Like that, you're enabling these actions. And a judge has already ruled that these actions are unconstitutional. So we have to stop that. So we're working towards that. I'm waiting for the Board of Police Commissioners to follow through on giving us those policies. Well, and so that's what we're doing, right? Which is a lot. And there's so much more we can talk about. But I want to talk about where we need to be. What we must do to work towards a Los Angeles where housing is treated as a right and not as a commodity. You know, in the city council, that body has become financial advisors to private investments instead of guardians for our communities. And I'm trying to push against that. And one of the ways to do that is by naming that housing is a human right, plain and simple. And so let's figure out how we do that. Immigrant families are protected and must be protected. Environmental justice is a baseline expectation. Community voices guide major projects that are coming in, that they should be at the table, not just on the menu. For example, like the gondola. I'm not sure if y'all are familiar with it. And that women and gender fluid people, TGI people, are empowered to lead in every sector of public life. So the gondola, you have heard about the gondola from Dodger Stadium from Union Station to Dodger Stadium. I've been very clear in my opposition to that. This is a David versus Goliath fight where we are going up against a billionaire, Frank McCourt, who wants this private project. Yes, I believe in removing the traffic and figuring that out, but he wants to build on the Dodger Stadium parking lots. And if he wants to do that, then be straight up about it, man, so that we can figure it out. Do we need to add a fire station in that area? Do we need to add other things, a police station? But don't just build this gondola saying you're gonna do it for the environment and traffic when it's not gonna do that. We've put in some money into doing a traffic study, into bringing more bike lanes, into bringing in dash lines. You know, we have the Metro Rapid Bus. Well, we should do a dash line from Chinatown, just going up College Street. So we're looking at all the ways to reduce traffic there, and in a way that's environmentally friendly, so that we're not creating more mechanisms for displacement for that community. Because in Council District 1, Echo Park is my lowest income neighborhood, where the average median income per year is $17,000 a year. $17,000 a year. That's because most of them are seniors, monolingual speaking, immigrants, on very, very fixed incomes. Charter reform. Who's familiar with charter reform? Okay, there's 2 hands that went up. So three hands. The charter is the constitution of this city. We don't crack that book open to make changes very often. And when they have tried, they have failed. Right now, we're going through a charter reform process that governs everything from who can hold the LAPD accountable, how much power the mayor has, how many council members we have, whether we can sell the asphalt that our city produces. So many things are governed by the charter. And if you're not plugged in, please plug in, because this really dictates how we can move forward as a city. How can we progress, or how do we stay stuck in doing this? I've found that they love doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It's wild. So this is a moment. If you're not plugged into charter reform, I urge you, please plug in. They're having meetings, and we need a lot of good, conscious voices in that space. Now, reaching this vision requires not only policy change, but a cultural shift towards accountability, transparency, and shared leadership. The most urgent way to shape the future of our city is to engage in the budget process. You all pay taxes. You've been paying taxes for a long time, whether you go to the grocery store, pay your rent, pay your mortgage. Those are taxes. Half of our city budget, about $8 billion, are locally generated tax dollars, from when you pay your rent, property taxes, when you pay your water, electricity. 45% of that goes to one department, and that's the LAPD. Who has a street light that they know is out? Raise your hand. Now, out of the $8 billion of our general fund, 0.5%, which is 0.5% of that money, goes into the entire Bureau of Street Lighting. The Bureau of Street Lighting is in charge of fixing all our lights. How are they gonna, it's not an accident that it takes a year plus to fix a street light when you're only investing 0.5% of your budget into that department. And because of the lack of maintenance, and because we have let our city crumble, because I know you all have lived in Los Angeles when the infrastructure has been beautiful, because I have, everything's crumbling now. And that's called deferred maintenance. We paid out one lawsuit for a piece of a light fell on somebody. We paid out $21 million. $21 million is the entire Bureau's group that works on reinforcing our street poles and making sure that they can't steal the copper wire theft, replacing the copper wire theft. And so that all of that for the city, that group was paid out in one lawsuit. Again, because of deferred maintenance. We pay, I think it was over $73 million on trip and falls in our sidewalks. We don't invest in fixing our sidewalks. It takes 10 years to fix a sidewalk in this city, 3 to 5 years to put in a blue handicap curb, because your tax dollars are not coming back here. Your tax dollars are being used to buy an 18th and 19th helicopter that costs $18 million. That's where it's going. And so people say, yeah, my taxes fund the government. It does. They do. Do you know where it's going? Most people don't. And that's why the budget is so important. I organize Budget 101 trainings in my district because I want the people to know, like, you're calling me for streetlights? Help me push the mayor to move money into Bureau of Street Lighting. But a lot of this, I say it in City Hall all the time in front of my colleagues because I want them to hear me. The reason why our city is so broken, and both infrastructure-wise, policy-wise, is because of dereliction of duty. I'm sure you all have experienced the increase in sanitation fees. They hadn't done that for years. Another dereliction of duty. There's a fee assessment that goes with the Bureau of Street Lighting. That fee assessment hasn't been updated since 1996. So much dereliction of duty and action not taken. But modernizing our budget process is also important because there's a reason why you don't know about the budget. It's because it's not really a public process for you to engage. It happens between the mayor and the council. It's not public. You can give public comment a few times, but by the time you give public comment, that cake is baked. So it's not really, you're not really making an impact because it's done already. And so what I'm trying to change is that trying to change the process so you all know what's going on when the budget comes out, being able to engage before that cake is cooked so that we can all make a difference in that budget because that's our money. So you can participate in the budget hearing, submit comments online, and mobilize your networks. That's why we do the Budget 101 training, so we can get neighborhoods to come together. And it's working. In Glassell Park, they have done surveys for their neighborhood, and now they write letters to the mayor saying, this is the results of our survey, this is where we want to see the dollars. And for the most part, it's the things that we want to see, which is street lights, unarmed crisis response, our rec and parks fixed, you know? But all of those things we can't do alone. I am one of 15 council members, and I need 8 to make anything happen. And for the most part, I'm able to get the 8 because I work with everyone, just not on everything. But what help us achieve more is by people getting engaged. We can't stop the horrific actions of the federal government. We can't stop the president from calling on having congressmen hanged. We can't stop that. But what we can do here is we're the second largest city in the entire country. We have a lot of fires that we can put out locally that are under the purview of the city council and the mayor. And so these moments right here are so important because this is people power. This beats the corporations. This beats the billionaires. This beats Frank McCourt. That's what it does. And so I'll end with this, is that this moment demands fierce, values-driven leadership, especially from us in the community. We have challenges ahead, but we also have each other. Today is a reminder that leadership is not something held by a few. It's something that is practiced by many, and we need to flex that muscle of practicing it, all of us. Let's continue to build a city grounded in justice, equity, and shared humanity. At least that's my goal. I know that other people have other intentions on the council. I'm going through this traumatic process because I love people. I love my community, and I'm willing to go toe-to-toe with some of the people who are making money off of our community, off of our infrastructure, to make them pay for that. We got robots delivering food on our sidewalks, taking away jobs. You got Waymos, driverless vehicles using up our asphalt. Neither of those companies are paying a utilization fee to make money off our infrastructure. That's what I'm looking at. And those are the fights that I want to keep taking on. And so I just thank you for the work that you do. I want to thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for allowing me to join y'all. Thank you for allowing me to ramble on some of this stuff. And so it's really important to me. But again, people power. So thank you again. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for the love. And we're doing Q&A. I'll follow whoever wants me to lead. I'll follow whoever's going to lead.
Good, yeah. I have found that the dollar and the penny and the money is something that everybody has a concept of, everybody relates to. So making a point by calling it an amount of dollars, I think is impacting. When you said that $21 million went to one lawsuit?
Yeah.
One lawsuit. You had mentioned also that you want to reallocate police funds. And I know there's a lot of imaginary consequences of that people think about, like, well, what if this and what if that? And defund the police, I think, as a slogan got really maligned. Mm-hmm. But when you say reallocate money or keep putting the money there, but this is the dollar amount that we pay for abuse of power, do you have a dollar amount that we pay out of our tax pockets for abuse of power by the LAPD? Because that dollar amount would be very convincing to anybody who says, I don't like the idea of taking the budget from the police. But if I was there, I was on Echo Park Boulevard at Lemoyne and Echo Park on the night that the Dodgers won the World Series, and I almost got run over by a horse. I was being yelled at, and I assumed it was somebody on the street. I was on the sidewalk. And I looked up, and there was a horse, and they were shooting tear gas, and they were doing all that stuff. And I think it makes sense when you have a dollar amount. Mm-hmm. Is there a dollar amount that we pay for police overreach?
Yeah, in the last few years, you've paid $400 million in lawsuits for police overuse of force. And that is from horses, that is from the rubber bullets and tear gas, but it's also from them killing people. I remember, so I got appointed to the Budget and Finance Committee. And a few months ago, there was a week where we had back-to-back lawsuits around LAPD because they killed people. And I think it totaled over $20 million just in 2 cases. And yeah, so it's about $400 million in the last few years. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I appreciate that question because, you know, like when people hear defund the police, they get scared because they think you're going to take away the public safety system. But we really have to reassess our budget and see, are we getting our return on investment? When 45% of your locally generated tax dollars are going to one department and you don't feel safe, that's a problem. And people don't feel safe walking down the streets because the lights are not on. That's public safety. Our seniors don't feel safe walking on the sidewalks because they're broken. So for us, when we talk about public safety, I try to talk about it as an ecosystem and how we need to invest in that ecosystem, and we have not for a long time. That's why even when you call 911, I don't know if y'all have noticed this, but it takes time for a human being to answer.
Yeah.
My first year, when I visited all my police stations and the dispatching center just to learn, because I was like, if I'm going to make decisions on this, I want to learn. When I went to the dispatching center, I learned that most of our 911 dispatchers on the police side were on forced overtime. 6 to 7 days a week, forced overtime. Why? Because the city was not hiring them. They were creating barriers to hire them. So I put in a motion to remove the barriers, and now they've hired many more, and they're not on forced overtime. But yeah, it's not keeping people safe because it's just responding to harm and violence. I believe in my whole career, I spent over a decade working on state legislation, state budgets, ballot initiatives to prevent harm and violence from happening in the first place. I'm a survivor of sexual assault. The criminal justice system, the 911 system, LAPD didn't keep me safe. You know, instead it sent my friends to jail for selling weed when he needed a job. And so there's a lot that we can talk about, but I've been focusing on not just responding to harm and violence, but preventing it. That's why I've invested $500,000 in peace ambassador teams, These teams are people formerly gang impacted, formerly incarcerated, that are peer navigators. For example, MacArthur Park, there was a 5-person shooting in January. My Peace Ambassador teams prevented there from being any retaliation. So that's the prevention of harm and violence from happening. And I know we can go on all day on just that one question, but I just want you to know it's a priority for me and something that I focus on every day. And we do need to reassess our budget and where we put our money because people don't feel safe.
Thank you. I'll try and be short, but I'm not known for that. I was born in LA in 1952, and I think I'm going to die in LA. And I love LA. Went to school here. My children were born here. My grandparents, first merchants at Alvarez Street, and we still have the puesto there. We're struggling. I worked for recreation and parks for the city of Los Angeles for 40 years. I was director in charge here at Echo Park when the newspaper said that Echo Park was a dead park. And I ended up really making a program here for the community. Got on the neighborhood council, had a park advisory board, including a person who was right here at this place. Also saw a lot of disasters that took place here in Los Angeles. Right when Mayor Reardon came in, he had the wonderful idea of every businessman of how he could fix stuff. And that included merging, quote, merging recreation and parks with other small departments like libraries, cultural affairs. Basically getting rid of recreation and parks. That's when I learned about the charter. He couldn't. Recreation and parks is in the charter. It takes the whole city council to take it out of the charter to do away with recreation and parks. And I found out some more too, because suddenly Reardon saw the light because we had the Northridge earthquake right after that. I learned how to find my way to Northridge in the dark because it is the directors in charge of these parks that are trained in CERT training. It is not the Red Cross that comes to this emergency shelters first. It is not the police. It's not the fire department. It is that director that has the key to the center. And they are trained in order to set up morgues, in order to get security organized, in order to get food and supplies from the nearby areas, to track down where do the doctors live, where do the nurses live, where are the generators, who lives in what place and who cannot get out of their apartments. The staff is being cut horribly and they are not being trained. One, it needs to stop. Rec and Parks needs to have a decent budget instead of giving it to LAPD constantly. Two, neighborhood councils would be great if they were trained in CERT training. They know their neighborhoods. And if we ever have another Northridge, they are going to be living here and they would be able to say, this is where this person lives. Let's go to that park. This store is the one that has water while they're waiting the 2 weeks to have any kind of help come to them. And I have mentioned this over and over again to other council members and mayors with an S because Northridge was horrible. Now we have more people in the city of LA. It's going to get a lot worse if we get hit and we're not ready. Neighborhood councils have got to be CERT trained, and so do the recreation and park people. And by the way, when I saw that my own kids needed help, because I live in the county, I live over in East LA, Mayor got on the line and said, all of you workers, if you do not show up, you not only will be fired, you will be incarcerated. We have to show up. We're the first responders. So just to let you know, the time's coming. We don't have the training.
I 100% agree with you. That's why I've invested over, and I appreciate, thank you for saying all of that, because you're right. I've recognized that, seeing the fires, seeing, my team says the government is not going to save you. And I think that and I don't say that because we're not fighting, but we saw the fires. We saw the fires. I've invested over $70,000 this year in training up my neighborhoods in CERT and fire response. Part of the members include neighborhood councils, but a lot of them are block captains in the community, learning the skills to keep our community safe and help them in crisis. Because I was like, we're not gonna, the city's not being proactive. We can't wait for the departments to activate because the departments are being chokeholded in their budget. So yes, we're investing in that because we see the desperate need. I represent one of the densest neighborhoods west of the Mississippi, which is MacArthur Park. It's one of the areas where we've invested in our CERT and in Pico Union and in Lincoln Heights, another dense area, because of that need. So with you on that. And then Rec and Parks also, there's a park assessment happening right now that they're reviewing. This will put an initiative on the ballot so that our parks can be fully funded. My second year in office, I wasn't on the Budget and Finance Committee, but that year I helped save over 80 LA park and rec jobs because they were being cut. And it was like, how are you gonna cut these positions when who's gonna keep the parks open? Who's gonna run the classes? And they're gonna cut those 80 positions at the same time that they were increasing the number of police that they were gonna be able to hire. I was like, absolutely not. And so I was able to stop that. And not the money going to LAPD, but the firing of all those Rec and Parks folks, because some of those Rec and Parks are the only front yards and backyard for a lot of my communities, because I have 60% population renters, mostly apartment buildings. And so these are their front yard and backyard. So 100% with everything you're saying, but be on the lookout for that ballot initiative and the park assessment.
Also, I'm telling you now, a lot of the best workers, full-timers from Rec and Parks are leaving the department in droves because they can't make enough money. They're overworked. They are cheated out of overtime, and they are not being able to promote the people who have gotten positions. And I can't get fired, so I don't care about saying it. The general manager is a joke. We no longer put any kind of respect for recreation as a profession. The attitude that they have been met with constantly is anybody can throw a ball at a kid, which is very disrespectful. My daughter finally got out of Rec and Parks. She couldn't handle it. She was the director in charge of Costello Rec Center. Not enough money, and she never saw her kids, and was constantly getting phone calls throughout the week, night and day, and not paid for it. She became a management analyst for LAPD, LAFD pension. She was number 9 out of a list of I don't know how many thousands. And they told her, where'd you learn all this? She goes, in the parks. And she told me, this is like a dream come true. I've actually seen my family and I have money in my pocket. They're all leaving. The next test is coming up. We are losing good people because the city is not treating them with respect.
100%. 100%, and I agree with you, and I thank you for sharing that. I'm in total agreement. We have, I've been in office for 3 years, so I've gone through 3 budget cycles. And for the first 2 years, there were sacred cows. And the sacred cows are always LAPD, and everything that's on the line is arts and culture, is our youth development department, is our seniors, park and recs. And I voted no on the budget my first 2 years. This third year, I got appointed to the Budget and Finance Committee, and which gave me an opportunity to fight harder, and I was able to save 1,000 jobs. But even with us raising the wages, like we have corporations, at least corporations and billionaires are coming after me because of that. Because I believe that we need to have people who have not just living wages, but thriving wages. And I have voted on wage increases, and even for our Rec and Parks department, but they don't want to pay. And even the city doesn't want to do that. They were forced to do the Rec and Parks raises because they gave LAPD $1 billion in raises that we're going to be paying for 4 years. So that's all to say that I agree with you and that you're right, and that the department is so broken because we haven't prioritized it.
Thank you. So we've got a few questions on Zoom. I do see a lot of hands in person. We'll try to make our way around as best as we can. But we're going to go ahead and get a question in from one of our Zoom attendees.
Can I ask a question? This is about immigrants in our city, and I wonder about the concern and the plans about ICE raids, getting at gardeners and workers who are at jobs, and then protecting schools and churches and children walking to and from schools. That's one. Secondly, is there concern about closing the detention center or minimally improving conditions? at the detention center. So how does the council plan to protect immigrants in the city, many of whom are afraid to leave home?
That's a great question. When it comes to the detention center, that is not under our jurisdiction, and even that's under the Congress and the federal government's jurisdiction. I overlap with Congressman Jimmy Gomez. Jimmy Gomez has visited the detention center in downtown multiple times, trying to get in, trying to get an assessment of what's happening. The federal government has now begun to bar any federal representative from entering any of their facilities without an appointment. And so when Jimmy Gomez, the congressman, was finally able to get into the Metro Detention Center, they had cleared people out. There was like a handful of people still left, but that was intentional. And I wish we had more jurisdiction over that. What I have jurisdiction over is what happens outside of the detention center. So that is the people that are protesting outside. How do we get LAPD not to shoot people, how to hurt them? And it's something that we're battling internally, because folks are saying, well, we would rather have them arrested by LAPD than by the federal government, because if the federal government takes them, we don't know where they'll land. Okay, that's a good point, but also LAPD doesn't need to be stomping on people to control a crowd. Maybe there's other techniques. So that's what we do have purview over. That's what I'm trying to establish, is some of these regulations and protocols for how they respond to crowd control, what techniques they can use, what weapons they should not be using. Which also, I just want to say that all these tactics that they're allowed to use now are because of the new chief of police, Jim McDonald. Before, when there was Chief Moore, they weren't using a lot of these tactics in crowd control. You didn't even see them when George Floyd protest was happening. But now with Jim McDonald, he's allowed that to happen. And I don't know if you know Jim McDonald. I've known this man for over 10 years. He hates me because we've always been at opposite ends fighting. He has shown us who he is. He helped deport thousands and thousands of people in LA County. He fought the state sanctuary state law. So he is not a friend of our immigrant communities. He is not a friend of Los Angeles. He is a friend of carceral expansion through technology and other means. And so that's why you see an escalation in crowd control that we're experiencing right now. It's not an accident. It's a change in leadership. I was one of the only 2 people that voted no for his appointment when the mayor appointed him. Now, when it comes to keeping families safe, something that I'm seeing Chicago do is having protected routes where they're picking people up from different locations to take them to work and take them to school. That is something that we want to explore to figure out how we can move our folks safely. The other thing that I'm focusing on is just meeting people where they're at, like food access. MacArthur Park, Pico Union, Westlake, University Park, predominantly immigrant communities, where their main income is street vending for the most part. They're not able to do that at the rate they were. So the way that I'm trying to fill that gap is by feeding folks. We put in like $500,000 for food distributions and access for food, $500,000 in rental assistance to prevent people from falling into homelessness. During the budget process, the mayor had proposed a budget that removed the Represent LA money, which is money to allow for legal access when you're in deportation proceedings. I fought to put that money back. The proposed budget also had removed money for our day labor centers that we have in the Home Depots. I fought and put that money back. And I will say this, at some point, side note, we need to figure out a nationwide boycott of Home Depot, because it is clear, it is abundantly clear that they are colluding with the federal government. They don't want the day labor centers there. They don't want day laborers on their property. And so my Home Depots, one of the first raids that happened in LA was at the Cypress Park Home Depot Day Labor Center. Yep. My Home Depot in Westlake, MacArthur Park, has been hit over 4 times. So at some point, organizers need to do that, but that's what's happening. So I know I strayed off, but we have more organizing to do here at the city to fill some of the gaps. It's like the Underground Railroad, getting people there. So that's kind of what we're imagining that we're going to have to do to get people to work safely or to school safely. They're getting $170 billion in new budgets. So what we're going through, I hope that that's the worst of it, but I'm afraid that it might not be because of the amount of money that they're going to be getting. So I wish I had a better answer, but again, we're trying to figure out and how we build our responses and safety nets as we move forward.
Thank you.
Do I go next? Oh. Yeah, thank you so much, Councilwoman. I am very proud to be living in Council District 1. My husband and I have owned a home in Montecito Heights for 22 years, and when she was running for office and we looked at her information, it's like, there's no way we could not vote for this woman. So we supported you. I consider myself an Anglican socialist, so go figure. But I just wanted to make more of a suggestion and a comment. You know, when you talked about the, instead of police responding to like mental illness situations and having a team, that maybe there's a possibility of also having a group of clergy and lay religious leaders to be part of that on occasion,
Yes.
if they need somebody from the religious community, the faith community. So maybe we can sit down at some point with you or your staff and talk about that. And I also, in regards to ICE, and you know, a lot of us are members of CLU, Clergy and Lady United for Economic
Yes.
Justice. We've been on the streets since, you know,
Yes.
whenever.
Yes.
And you know, some every day. This guy here, and members of, and then we also are a member. We have the Diocesan Sacred Resistance Movement, the Episcopal Diocese, and a lot of us are members of that. And we have our own, CLU and Sacred Resistance has their own like rapid response network. So, you know, when we know exactly where ICE is going to be at any given time, and that's what your group is doing too. So maybe that could be coordinated too in some way too. So
100%.
yeah, so just a suggestion so that we can show up when you guys show up. Kind of thing.
Yes, no, I think that's a great suggestion. Yes. Instead of working harder, we're working smarter together. And I just want to name, we were with clergy and I think CLU and LA Voice and others doing vigils at Grand Central Park, Gloria Molina Park.
Yep, we were
and
there.
one of the first days, we marched from that park to the federal building. And literally, the federal, the soldiers there, which is National Guard, when we got to the steps of the federal building, literally, like, they were ready to attack. Like, I saw some of them holding others back, but they were like ready to stomp on us. And that for me was the first clue. Like, they don't care. They don't care if you're clergy at all. That was one of the first moments where I was like, no one is safe. If clergy's not safe in this moment, then no one is safe. And that was a very scary moment. Me and my team had to run out because after we got to the steps, you know, then they started, people started shooting fireworks and other things. So it was a very intense time, but yeah, no, very, very scary. Yes. But no, yes, we can connect you, Michelle, we can follow up and connect you with Jocelyn. Jocelyn is our organizer around our response, and we can plug you all in so that, you know, one thing we're also doing is sending district-wide text messages. We have a text messaging program where if we hear about an immigration raid happening, we send a text to that area saying, hey, we have confirmed federal immigration raids happening in this area. These are your rights. Be on the lookout and try not to go in that area. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's just great. Thank you so much for your leadership and your energy. We just appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
And I'm here to give a shout out to members of your staff as well, Eric and others, and representatives who come here and meet with the neighborhood council, which meets here in our facility. Think of us as your crossroads between CD1 and CD13, if you will. And there's precedent for that. Jackie Goldberg helped build this building, and as you probably know, Jackie Goldberg is the aunt of Rabbi Susan Goldberg. And so there's so much good energy here for 32 years.
A lot of love.
And we love the new chapter that you're bringing in CD1. So we're loyal participants with you, as are the 3 other Episcopal churches that are in your district. St. Athanasius being 1864, the oldest Protestant house of worship in Southern California. The Church of the Epiphany in Lincoln Heights, where Cesar Chavez and Dolores Huerta were so active. All Saints Highland Park, and St. Mary's Mariposa is right on the border. So we're here. Call on us. We're at your service.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So we understand you have a hard stop at 1
Well, I could do a
o'clock.
few more questions.
Oh, you can?
Yeah,
Okay,
I can
all
do
right.
it.
Hello, I'm Dolores DeAngelis, and I am a member of St. Athanasius Church. And I wanted to make sure that you are aware and know of Seeds of Hope. And Seeds of Hope is a program that has been going on through St. Paul's Commons in St. Athanasius for 30 plus years. Every Friday, Seeds of Hope distributes food, and we are very concerned about food. And we also, twice a month, have a free clinic where residents of CD1 and CD13 can get free exams and free flu shots. Since our federal government has changed, CD Hope has lost $500,000. And so we are in need of help. And so I would encourage you to look at us and what we are doing. Seeds of Hope is all over Los Angeles. They serve, through Seeds of Hope, they furnish food for 72 food distributions. So please have either you or have your staff visit us on a Friday we serve the community from 8 until 10 in the morning. During the beginning of ICE, we brought the people lined up inside the building to protect them. We care. We care deeply for our neighbors in the community, and thank you for your outreach.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'll make sure that we stop on by and would love to partner with you all on a food distribution. We also do mobile showers, mobile laundry, so we can bring in more partners as well. I don't know if we can do it twice a month, but definitely I'll have my team check it out and see how we can support, because you have people coming to you. So we just need to bring the resources there. Yeah, a lot of people hungry, a lot of people struggling. Thank you. But I'll work with Michelle to make sure we can get out there. Thank you so much for all the work you do.
Councilmember, thank you for being here today. As you know, I do a lot of work in historic preservation and legacy businesses. There are a lot of legacy businesses that are at risk of being lost because of gentrification, and are, in particular, LGBTQ businesses in Westlake and areas like that. What can we do, and what can your office do to support these businesses to keep them open, to keep them as safe places for obviously very niche members of the community who need a safe place, and a place where safety isn't always guaranteed anymore? There are a lot of businesses that are at risk, and what can your office do? What can we do as a community to help preserve these businesses?
That's a great question. So 2 things. One is that we got to make sure that we do as much as we can of our buying from these small businesses. You know, for Christmas, Thanksgiving, whatever it is, go to our small businesses. As a collective, that's where we can put our money in and not give it to Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg or whatever the heck it is. Keep it at home, because then it comes back into our city budget anyways. Number 1. What I'm doing is I'm investing $400,000 in what's called a resiliency grant fund for small businesses in my district. $200,000 for the South and $200,000 for the North, and we gave $200,000 in Chinatown for an organization to handle that. So it's a total of $600,000. I'm not asking people to hop through hoops. This is like, if you can tell us you've been impacted by the fires, federal immigration raids, the tariffs, or other issues, then you have access to this funding. Because our budget thrives when our small businesses thrive, which means that our city thrives. So we're injecting that fuel back into them, and we're hoping that money helps them survive the onslaught of what's happening now. And that's just for this fiscal year. Next year, we're going to try to revamp it again and put new money. But at least for this year, we have $600,000 going to that, directly to small businesses.
It's very frustrating to hear the idea that the federal government can deny access to the building. Does the city have the authority to deny the federal government access to our street? Can they just say, sorry, this exit is closed, this street has been permitted, and there's no cars allowed? You can't drive immigrants on these streets because it's closed today. Does the city have that power?
That's something that we are exploring. So some of us organize, exactly, because we don't know. I wish I could say, hell yeah, no, but we don't. We don't have that, and we've been trying to experiment with safe zones. So my council member colleague, Tim McCosker, has begun to implement safe zones at his events. San Pedro is right next to that terminal island. And a safe zone is, and we've done this without the name, but it's essentially you're creating buffer zones around, for example, an event. So they have people walking around the event, just scoping things out with their walkie-talkies. But it's mostly community or organizations. It's not LAPD, which would be great, right? If we could have LAPD just, block the street and keep it safe. What I've heard is that they don't want a shootout between the feds and LAPD. That's why they don't want that confrontation between them. I don't think that would happen anyways, but yeah. And arrest when you're breaking the law, and people are getting kidnapped essentially. So, or stand with the baton facing you instead of facing the feds. So yes, we had to cancel a few of our events that we had in June because of how heavy the raids were. But we have also implemented safety zones and buffer zones around our areas. So we had a huge backpack giveaway in Lincoln Heights. Our team had whistles. They were walking around the area. Our peace ambassadors were walking around the area, just in case if anything happened. And the whole block of businesses were in agreement that if anything happens, everybody's running in and you lock the doors. And that's how we keep people safe. So we're exploring those models, not official, but we are exploring them. And I'm sure at some point it's going to come to head on the legality of some of these things. But we're going to do it until they tell us not to,
So, Councilwoman Hernandez, we're getting signals from Michelle that you should leave, but let's all give the Councilwoman a huge round of applause.
Thank you.
I don't know about you, but I'm really energized, and I don't live in your district. I wish I was in your district, but anyway, so we educated ourselves, say some prayers. I don't know what you heard about action, but I heard invest in small businesses, boycott Home Depot, and learn about the city budget and the city charter. So those are my takeaways. So with that, I'd like to give you this little gift from the Immaculate Heart community.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for your time. Thank you so much. Bless you on your work.
Thank you so much, and bless all of you too. If I could just leave you with a few words, is please continue to be hopeful. Please continue to fight in all the ways that you can fight. And sometimes that's by loving your neighbor. And so please don't stop loving those around you. That's how we're going to survive this onslaught. Get to know your neighbor if you don't know your neighbor. And also hold your local government accountable. Because there's a lot of fires that we can put out that we're responsible for, that we need to be hearing from the people that you want change. So I hope this is not the last time. I hope this is the first time of many. Thank you for opening up your home to me and for giving me space and time to share. La lucha sigue, the fight continues, but we're all together in it, okay? Thank you. Thank you. Si se puede, thank you.